Hey guys, welcome back to another Redstone video. Today I want to talk about some surprising uses of the new blocks, the Sculk Catalyst and the Sculk Shrieker. So the Sculk Catalyst can be used as an instant wireless redstone block, and the Sculk Shrieker is a really good player detector. Okay, let's start with the Catalyst. So it would detect entities dying within 8 blocks, and the information is sent immediately. So if you focus on this piston here, as soon as the chicken is killed, piston would extend. So not only can an observer detect the entity dying or the skull catalyst changing, so there's a block state here, bloom would change to true, but it also gives out block updates. So but would be able to also be activated by this. So this is slightly better compared to, for example, the Sculk sensor, because there the signal takes a while to travel. If you compare this, takes a bit longer until this piston is getting extended. And of course, with the Sculk sensor, you have the issue that other events might trigger it. You can get around this by using comparators filter out certain events. But yeah, you don't have this issue here, but only activate if an entity dies. Unfortunately, you need something like a chicken or another animal, a hostile mob, an armor stand, or a minecart or boat or something like that, unfortunately wouldn't trigger the Sculk Catalyst. It's also not important if the entity would actually drop XP, so baby animals would work as well. So here I made a resettable setup. So the idea is we kill the chickens with lava, which the Sculk Catalyst would pick up. And then we dispense eggs until we get a baby chicken and falls through string, stops the dispenser again. So there's quite a contraption here. There's not a huge downside that it would use up eggs over time. It takes a while until it resets. So yeah, it's not really that great, but yeah, it's quite interesting. So in order to replace the eggs, I just put a lot of chickens in there. It would lay eggs over time again. Okay, let's talk about the Sculk Shrieker next. The Sculk Shrieker block is quite an interesting one because it can also be activated by redstone. So not only if the player would make noise around it, but if you power it, it would also shriek. So we can use this here. The block state here changes to shrieking true. And after exactly 90 ticks, it changes back to shrieking false. Then it has a cooldown until it can shriek again of an additional 110 ticks or 5.5 seconds. So you couldn't activate it again. It has a cooldown. But it's actually quite interesting. This could maybe be used as some kind of a delay circuit. So you activate it once, it would trigger, and then exactly 90 ticks or 4.5 seconds later, it would trigger a second time. So this could be quite convenient, but unfortunately there's some downsides to the Sculk Shrieker, because if you activate one, there's a global cooldown for all the Sculk Shriekers for a certain player. So if you would want to make a delay circuit like this one here, where after 90 ticks you would trigger the next one, and so on until the signal goes through the chain, this global cooldown of 10 seconds gets in the way. It also doesn't matter if the next Shrieker block is 5 blocks away or a million blocks away, so this global cooldown would affect all the Shriekers. So I immediately thought, hey, this would be maybe interesting for some unlimited wireless redstone. Could always check if a Shrieker just got activated somewhere. But there's another restriction. The Shrieker would only activate if a player is within a couple blocks. So if you move away and trigger the setup here by placing a redstone block, nothing would happen, because it requires a player to be nearby. Okay, so the next idea is then, of course, if you need a player nearby, then this could be used for a pretty nice player detector. And that's why we got this setup over here. So we got an observer clock constantly firing, trying to activate the Shrieker. But since there's no player next to it, it couldn't activate. But once we are close enough, so around the height of the door here, it would start shrieking, which we can detect, and, for example, open a door. So this would be a really good player detector. Of course, there's the downside of this guy here and the shrieking. But apart from that, yeah, this is pretty convenient. Of course, we already have a player detector block, but you can get around the detection with the Sculk sensor. So if you're sneaking and don't make any noise, then it also wouldn't detect a player being nearby. But yeah, if you go back to this setup here, doesn't matter if the player is sneaking or not, it would still activate the shrieker. I want to use the rest of the video to quickly answer some questions that arose about the Sculk charge. So how much charge can Sculk Catalyst hold and does it decay? So just gonna summon a couple of piglins here. And then you can use the data get command on the catalyst. Then it will tell you how much charge there is. So currently it's 696. And if you check again, you can see that it slowly decays over time. You can have up to 1000 per charge, and per Sculk Catalyst you can have 32 charges. In case you got a second one, then also the sound changes a little bit. You can hear it bubbling. And if you summon a couple more, yeah, the bubbling gets a bit more violent. We can also do the data get command again. So now we have 3 charges in total. Around 3000 XP in there. Okay, so we can keep this going and get up to 32k XP. And the charges, but it also slowly decays. And all of those would decay slowly. So if you have more than one charge, then yeah, it decays quicker. This is kind of interesting. If you have a line of blocks, it can be converted into Sculk. I think I have a fill command here. Then it would do nothing else but converting. So if you place it as a stone block here, whole charge travels like this through the stone. So technically you could read out by counting the amount of blocks they converted how large the charge was. But yeah, that's about it. So in the end, charge would also travel back within the Sculk blocks and try to create Sculk sensors and shriekers and so on. But currently there's also no way to, for example, detect a Sculk block with an observer, but this might be added later. Alright, that's it. Maybe let me know in the comments what else we can use those new blocks for. Thanks guys for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!